Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Erik ten Hag is backed by Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada, CEO and Director of Football. Lots said about Manchester United. Also, Dan Ashworth revealing the truth behind why Jadon Sancho left Manchester United. Also, Wan-Bissaka and Scott McTominay mentioned as well. We've got the latest on Adrien Rabiot from Fabrizio Romano. Could he be still coming to Manchester United? We've also got injury updates and we've also got quite a big update in relation to the contract of Erik ten Hag and why it wasn't signed off by Omar Barada, the CEO of Manchester United. Also want to talk a little bit about Ugarte. He's got an interview coming out at 2 o'clock and lots of people are saying, could Ugarte be the solution to the Casemiro problem, whereby Casemiro could still play for Manchester United? Very interesting to get into that as well. Also, we've got a bit of a mainstream media battle going on here. Some of you might want to join the mainstream for once. Stuff coming out that Ineos bottled sacking Ten Hag because they listened to fan opinion, but it's coming from a certain Manchester Evening News journalist. So I wouldn't want to be on that side, but if you are, crack on. Talking of which, apology time from Goldbridge. I have to apologise. I always listen, and after last night's show, which I thoroughly enjoyed, it was absolutely fantastic. This is getting on my tits on the right-hand side, by the way. Let me just get rid of this. It's really getting on my nerves. It's moving way, way too fast again, and I don't know why, so we'll turn it off completely. There we go. Yeah, last night on the show, we had a big discussion about Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out, shake it all about and everything. I had a bit of feedback in some of the comments that I've got to take on board. Obviously, in life, I live in a position where I don't live in extremities. I don't need to be Ten Hag in or Ten Hag out extreme. I live in between. Had a few people replying saying, to be fair, Mark, you're a lot older than a lot of people. Thanks, mate. But their point was, we live in a society where actually people are sort of indoctrinated into, not in a bad way, but people have extremities now. If you go on social media, it's either something's great or something's shit. If you watch a TV program, it's great or it's shit. If you look at the new Rings of Power or House of the Dragon, it can't just be, oh, it was okay, there was some good bits and bad bits. It was either shit or brilliant. And a lot of people do live their lives like that. You know, I'll be honest, my kids are a bit like that as well. So apologies. I know we have a different demographic of audience, and I think some people aren't actually used to that whole, how can you be critical of something but actually still support it? Whereas I grew up in a time where you could do that. You know, you could buy an Oasis album and go, Be Here Now. There's 4 or 5 good tracks on that. There's 3 or 4 I don't like. It's an okay album. I love Oasis. And that's sort of where I and some people are coming from, whereas I do actually think we do live in a world a bit where some people just don't like something but can be critical of it, or dislike something but be, you know, constructive about it. So apologies. I have to sometimes forget that, I don't have to, I do sometimes forget that people think in different ways. Like, we have a lot of people from around the world watching who don't understand sarcasm, which, you know, I'm very sarcastic, and sarcasm doesn't necessarily travel, where you can say something and you don't necessarily mean it. So apologies. I said that is a genuine apology. I'm not being sarcastic. Right, let's get into the show. Lots to get into. We're going to start off with Omar Barada, who is the CEO of Manchester United, and Dan Ashworth, who is the Director of Football of Manchester United. These are big statements coming in. They are supporting Ten Hag. They are talking about the transfers. Dan Ashworth admitting it was a good transfer window, but it could have been better. Omar Barada saying that this transfer window cannot be a one-off. It has to keep happening. And I think that for me is probably the most important statement that Omar Barada has made out of everything that he said in that interview. I really did like the fact that he sort of homed in on the fact that we need to be doing more of what we've done. This was his direct quote. So to build what we don't want to just win one Premier League and then be satisfied. We want to create a team that is capable of competing for the Champions League, for the Premier League and domestic trophies on a consistent basis. And to build that, we need to be doing more of what we've done this window. We've addressed priority positions that were identified very early on, and we were able to do it in a financially sustainable way. We were quite disciplined about the valuations we were giving to the players who were going to come in, and we stuck to those valuations. Dan Ashworth and the team did a fantastic job in the negotiations process. But for me, it's about we need to do more of what we did this window in future windows. And I think that will be music to the ears of all of you lot. Certainly is to me, that, you know, that fear, we've seen the Glazers, to be fair, spend money. Jose Mourinho's first summer was Zlatan, Paul Pogba, Mkhitaryan, Eric Bailly. Did he get that in summer 3? Got nothing and was gone by Christmas. And it happened with Ollie. We need to see this type of a summer every summer for Manchester United, until you get to a point where you're Man City, you can just ice the cake. You know, you just bring one player in. So I do like that. But look, let's get into the backing of Ten Hag. So effectively, what has been said is that, and this is the CEO, Omar Barada again, Erik Ten Hag has our full backing and we've worked very closely in this transfer window. We're going to continue working very closely with him to help him get the best results out of the team. That is a direct quote from Manchester United CEO, that Erik Ten Hag has got the full backing of this club, and you've seen that during the transfer window. Now, I want to just say, a lot of people are getting excited about that because they're saying, well, that's a vote of confidence, the dreaded vote of confidence, where a manager that's about to be sacked, the CEO comes out and says, we're 100% behind the manager. Two things about that. One, it's about 20 years too old. I mean, you very rarely get the dreaded vote of confidence now. It's a myth. I think the dreaded vote of confidence is actually a little bit like the magic sponge. Remember when people used to get injured and the physio would come on with a sponge and everything was fine? You know, oh, I've ripped my cruciate ligament. There's a bit of sponge. I'm healed. That sponge must have come straight from Jesus. It had healing powers. But this dreaded vote of confidence actually doesn't exist anymore. You very rarely see a CEO going, Sean Dyche has got our full backing and then he's sacked tomorrow. They tend to say it and mean it. But the most important thing about this is, whether it's a vote of confidence or not, what some people have missed, and I think it's a bit disgusting really, is that this interview was done before the Liverpool game. So it's come out after the Liverpool game, but it was done before the Liverpool game. So there is no context to a full backing, a vote of confidence, and a Liverpool loss, because all these quotes we're going to give you were before the Liverpool game. So there is no direct correlation between the Liverpool result and Omar Barada or Dan Ashworth's comments. As interesting as they are, the Liverpool result was not known. So unless they do another interview today, there is no context to that. And that, you know, I understand again, you need that context, because if you heard them, you'd just be thinking, oh, why would you come out and back the manager after such a bad result? But I don't think United, as I said last night, I think patience is going to have to be a part of everybody's vocabulary here, because they're not going to sack Erik Ten Hag on this international break. I think Erik Ten Hag's in for a very difficult international break where he will be scrutinised quite rightly to a very, very high level. But I think even the staunchest Ten Hag outer, you know, the one who loves Sancho and calls him a bold fraud and everything like that, even they will know that the sacking is not going to happen in the next couple of weeks, and probably not in the next 6 weeks, to be honest. It'd be more the next international break if things carry on, where you'd go, maybe that could be the time. But even Gary Neville says he thinks it'll happen till Christmas. Can I just clarify again as well? The clip that's going round where I was saying that if you're Ten Hag out, it means you're in love with Sancho, you don't like Garnacho. Listen to it back before they cut it at the start of the video. I did say stereotypically every Ten Hag outer loves Sancho. Stereotypical means I'm being stereotypical. I'm basically saying everybody's the same, which obviously they're not. Ulrich, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. John says, obviously we're disappointed with the start of the season. The criticism is warranted, but it's good that Omar and Dan are backing Ten Hag. And Stuart says, given time, Ten Hag will succeed. I'm old enough to have seen Fergie's years, and looking at Ten Hag, given time, investment and patience, we will be again. Nice to see a bit of patience, but look, let's have the other side. We're going to get into these Ten Hag comments from Barada and Ashworth, specifically around why Jadon Sancho left. But just a little bit of transfer news this morning. Fabrizio Romano has given an Adrian Rabiot update. Now, Keel Robinson, I'm sure, will be in the chat. Sit down, Keel. We are not bringing in Rabiot. The Athletic wrote about it last week. Fabrizio has confirmed it. Manchester United never went for Rabiot. They were not interested in Rabiot, and certainly a lot of other clubs who were interested in him were put off by his wage demands. The reason Rabiot hasn't got a club and hasn't trained with anybody since the Euros is because his wage demands are ridiculous. And unfortunately, many people use the comment, a leopard never changes its spots. And unfortunately with Rabiot, he may have been a viable option in our midfield. There is no doubting his qualities, but the leopard don't change its spots. We tried to get Rabiot twice. Both times we were met with ridiculous wage demands, and again he's chucking wage demands that are unrealistic, and that is why he will probably end up I don't know where he'll end up as the Saudi. I don't know where he'll end up, but his wage demands are apparently ridiculous. So Adrien Rabiot is a no when it comes to Manchester United at the moment. I have got some injury updates to bring you as well, but let's just stick with the transfer side of things for a moment, because we are going to talk more about what was said about Erik Ten Hag. Hader says this break is perfect for Ten Hag to look at the cons in his system. The fixtures after are really important to judge his problem-solving skills. I don't think we could have a better set of fixtures, by the way. They are challenging. Our next... The 4 Premier League games we've got between this international break and the next one, 3 of them are away. 1 is at home. Southampton away, Crystal Palace away, Spurs at home, Aston Villa away. I see 6 points. I see a similar situation in the next international break where he won't be sacked, but there'll be enough ammunition for outers to be going, it's not good enough. And there'll be enough ammunition for inners to go, you can't really sack him yet. I see 6 points there. I see 2 wins and 2 losses. And that would put you right where we are now, where, you know, it's another 2 losses, it's another 2 wins. He's got to do better than that. The pressure will just be exactly the same. 2 wins, 2 losses, exactly the same. 3 wins, 1 loss, you're in good position. You know, they are challenging games, 3 away games. All I have to say is I need to see our new players play 5 or more games together before I make a judgment, not sack it off after 3 games, says Ray Carl. Very intelligent. Well, look, certainly an opinion I can get on board with. Anyway, let's carry on. I want to get into some of these comments that have come in from Dan Ashworth as well. So we've had the comment... Oh, actually, let's not bury this one. So, as part of the interview that Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth did, they both... I don't know who came out with the comment, but it has been confirmed that the contract that Erik Ten Hag was given was not their decision. They didn't sign it off. Now, some people have jumped on that and said, oh, they're distancing themselves. They're basically saying it's not their decision. I mean, I think that's convenient. I don't think it's by design. If Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada come out and say it was our decision to give Erik Ten Hag a contract, and Mag said Barada said it, so thank you very much for that. My opinion on that is that there is no way they weren't consulted. And secondly, if they did say it was their decision, they technically would leave themselves wide open to some sort of legal action from Man City and Newcastle, because Dan Ashworth was not resolved with Manchester United when we announced a new contract for Erik Ten Hag at the start of June. We hadn't sorted that out with Newcastle. And Omar Barada wasn't allowed to start with us until July either. So if Omar Barada comes out and says, yes, we were part of those negotiations and we're very happy with that contract, it's legally very tricky, says Freddie. And I think that is what he is saying, because if he does say they're involved, then legally they did it wrong. So I think that's why he's saying it. Obviously, you're always going to get people who jump in on that and go, oh, no, that's not what's happening. They never wanted him. They're just being given him. They were consulted because Omar Barada was going to be our CEO back in January, but he couldn't be officially until July. And Dan Ashworth we had back in February, but it wasn't officially till July. So I don't think there's anything in that. Maybe there is. I'm not going to dismiss it, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, that's a very clever CEO saying, well, obviously that wasn't our decision because we weren't official at that point. But I certainly think they were definitely consulted. And as I said, look, this in the same interview, Barada says, Ten Hag's got our full backing and we've worked very closely. We're going to continue doing that. And then Dan Ashworth said, I've really enjoyed working with Erik over the last 8 weeks. I see my job is to support him in every way I possibly can to fully focus on the training pitch and the match tactical plan to deliver success for Manchester United. And also what we've always known about, well, not always, but what we do know over the last 2 months is that Dan Ashworth and Erik Ten Hag are very close. Now, whether you like that or not, they are. That feedback's been coming out for weeks now. They're very close and they get on very well. So that appears to be the case there. And I think that what happens there is going to be very interesting, because those look, results will be the factor here. You know, let's just all take a calmness here, because it doesn't really matter which way you are at the moment. Maybe the further we move away from Liverpool, the less, you know, angry you're getting and the more pragmatic you're becoming. That's natural. Maybe becoming more angry. I don't know. But what is absolutely the thing that binds us, and history shows us, is that results dictate what happens. Erik ten Hag's got our full backing. Erik ten Hag should be sacked. We are committed to the long term with Erik ten Hag. Man United lose the next 4 games in a row. Sacked. Results will dictate this. No statement of future planning or support or enjoyment or like or anything like that. Solskjaer maintained the support of the board and was loved by the club from start to finish. Nothing ever changed with Solskjaer. When he left, he was allowed to do an interview. Remember Solskjaer's interview when he got the sack? He maintained the support, respect and love of that football club from start to finish, even though they sacked him. So I never read too much into full support. We really like him. You know, it's a long-term project, because results sack managers. It will not be Omar Barada or Dan Ashworth that sack Erik ten Hag. It will be Erik ten Hag that sacks Ten Hag. And if you want to get more technical, it will be Glasner of Crystal Palace, or it will be Emery at Villa in a few weeks' time, or it will be Ange smashing us at Old Trafford. They're the people that sack Ten Hag, because it's results. Results will... So I don't get too stressed about it either way, because results... Ten Hag will sack himself. And ultimately, if he does do that, then there's only one person to blame, isn't there? He has his destiny in his hands. What the club are saying is, we want you to be the guy. We've committed with the contract. We've committed with the players. And we are providing you with the support. If you can't do that, then, you know, obviously it will be down to you. United 1 says, can Erik ten Hag still get top 4 in your opinion, says United 1? Yeah, look at the league table. We're 1 point behind Chelsea and Spurs, who I think will battle for top 4. I think Villa have started off very, very well again. 6 points, but 3 points ahead of us. Newcastle haven't even been that good. 7 points, 4 points ahead of us. So, you know, I think it's not time to panic. I would never compare Man United to Sir Alex Ferguson, but I'm old enough to remember that we used to start so many seasons badly, and I'd think we're not going to win the league this year. As a younger kid, I'd go, we're not going to win the league. We've not started very well. And then by Christmas, you know, you're right back in it again. I will ruin you, says Matt Silverladder. Thank you very much. Can Erik ten Hag... Mark should have never wrote a letter to Ineos. John Marston, you bored the shit out of me last night. And, you know, the joke wasn't funny last night. So one more that's not constructive, and I will just ignore everything you ever write. I've never wrote a letter to bloody anybody. I haven't wrote a letter since about 1998. Who writes letters? And I haven't written any emails either. I don't need to. I just do it on WhatsApp. Mark, on a side note, finally got my signed book here in Singapore. Well done on the book. Loving it and hope to see you at a live show in the future. Stefan, thank you very much for your support. Drub says, I know you've always been talking about the 3rd year for Ten Hag, but ideally you just got only one transfer window with Ineos, and the problem that we have in United is impossible to solve in one window, says Drub. Mate, look, I'm not going to change on this one, right? It's not year 1 for Ten Hag. It's not a reset. It's year 3. There's no excuses. He's got to deliver this year. It's year 1 for Ineos. It's year 1 for Ashworth. It's year 1 for Wilcox. It's year 1 for Barada. It's year 1 for De Ligt. It's year 1 for Mazraoui, Agate, Xerxes. All those people deserve patience and mistakes, just like a young player. But for Ten Hag, it's year 3. And whilst there has to be some patience because it's only 3 games in, we can't just give him the whole season. Like, I think by the next international break, we'll be fast-tracking one way or the other, because the next 4 Premier League games will be key. Jason says, hi Mark, on injuries, do you think after 16 weeks players should have wages cut a bit like SSP? You would find there will be a lot less injuries, says Jason. No, because if you're like somebody like a Roy Keane and you go into a tackle at Anfield against, you know, one of Liverpool's best players to stop a goal, and you snap your leg into and you're out for 6 months, you can't cut their wages, can you? If Ten Hag was such a bad manager, you think beating City in the FA Cup final would be possible? I watched the game again and there was no look, says Ulrich. Fair point. My worry is if Ten Hag is sacked, the next manager will be a yes man, says John. And Perry says, thanks as always, Mark. Any thoughts on the Martinez photo with McAllister? I love him, but the time is really poor. You know what? This is a great point. I want to talk about the Sancho sale because Dan Ashworth spoke about it. So the real reason Sancho was let go. Let's talk about that. But this is a great point by Perry. And, you know, there was a picture of Martinez with McAllister, both on Argentinian duty. And some people have reacted to it really, really badly. I think there's 2 sides to this coin. It's topical as well, so thank you, Perry, for bringing it in. First of all, if that was, let's say, if that was, who plays for England? If that was Trent Alexander-Arnold and Marcus Rashford, people would lose their shit. And this is what I love about this community, is because, yeah, we can be really harsh. We can be really reactionary. We can be really overreactionary. We can be really passionate, but also we can be really pragmatic and fair. It's an emotional thing to support your football club, and you're not always going to be level-headed. And as much as Rashford's had a lot of criticism, if he was actually good enough to get called up for England and he was there with Trent the day after that loss to Liverpool, he would be absolutely slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered. So let's be fair here. There is no agenda. There is no toxicity. We will be fair about anything. If somebody's shit and they're consistently shit, they deserve to get called out for it. But if that was Rashford and Trent on England duty the day after Man United had been humiliated at Old Trafford going like that, people would go mad. Some people would say, kick him out of the club, fine him, etc. And I'd probably be there going, I'm not comfortable with it either. So with Martinez doing it with Alexi McAllister, why is it any different? And yet it does feel different, doesn't it? It does feel different. It feels very different. And that's why agenda will always subconsciously impact you. And you must try and fight it, because agenda is not a good thing. It's not a good thing in any walk of life, because it's like judging a book by its cover instead of reading it. And actually, what's the difference between Rashford and Trent doing it, if they did it on England duty, and Martinez and McAllister doing it? Well, it's because we like Martinez. It's because Martinez is a warrior. It's because Martinez is the butcher. It's because Martinez embodies what we want in a Man United player. We feel in tune with Martinez because he didn't even play well at the weekend, but he'll fight for the badge. He's passionate. So we'll let Martinez off with that because we like what Martinez does in a United shirt. Whereas someone like Rashford or Casemiro, if it was Casemiro and a Brazilian Liverpool player like Alisson, we'd be like, oh, well, look at him. I think there is agenda to that, but I think there is also a CV. You will let Martinez off with it because when he wears a Man United shirt, he will give absolutely everything. You will not let Casemiro or Rashford off with it because when they wear a Man United shirt, they either play shit or they don't look like they're interested. And that is agenda. It might be justifiable, but it is. I'm not comfortable with Martinez doing that with Alexi McAllister, but if we're going to go down that road, we're not living 20 years ago anymore. There's a lot of things with the modern football game that are not the same as 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you'd have Roy Keane squaring up to Vieira in the tunnel. At the weekend, we had Joshua Zirkzee making his first start for Man United in a massive game against Liverpool, walking down the Liverpool lineup, hugging Van Dijk, the captain of Liverpool. Even Van Dijk looked a little bit uncomfortable with it because he's a captain of Liverpool and he knows the importance of the game. But Zirkzee, he's straight there giving him a cuddle. And, I'm not comfortable with that either. But it's just the modern game. I don't really get stressed about it because I think we analyse so much in the modern game these days that realistically, Martinez having a picture with McAllister, Zirkzee hugging Van Dijk, we can criticise it, we can say we don't like it, but ultimately, if they perform on the pitch, that's where they get really judged, isn't it? So it's a great point. It's a great point. I'm not Erik Ten Hag in or out, says Steve. I'm Man United FC first and only, but we cannot overlook the team selection. Maybe it's not all on Ten Hag, but he can easily sub Rashford off. This will be his undoing, says Steve. Fair points. James Cave says, morning, Mark. I have patience to see how our game develops, but it concerns me that our players are still figuring out where teammates are mid-game, says James. Thomas says, would you take 5th or 6th if we won the Europa League? I'd take 5th if we won the Europa League and we were close to 4th. I still think the league is very, very important for us this year. 4 defeats in the first 7 in third year is unacceptable, says Robert McCormack. Which is, you talk. Well, that's why I say I don't think it. I think if we lose 2 before the next international break, and we've got 3 away games out of those 4, we'll be exactly where we are now in the next international break, and we'll be competing with each other for, you know, should this happen, shouldn't this happen? I agree, Robert. That's exactly what I'm saying. I think it's difficult for Eric because when we lose to a big 6 side, we seem to get slapped. Oli Van Gaal, Mourinho, they never really got battered, says William. We can't sack Ten Hag before Agate has played a game, says Paul. Football also dictates the decision. If Ten Hag only tweaks the system and we start playing better, Ineos should still back him regardless, says Aditya. Thank you very much for that. And Ray says, exactly, Mark. That's why as fans we must back for good results. If not, he has to go. But while he's here, I'm backing him until results, says Ray Carl. And also Arkish says, hi, Mark. Do you see similarities in our formation and Liverpool? We're chasing, creating chances, but our forwards lack the quality to finish, unlike Liverpool, who capitalise on even half chances. Thoughts? Mate, I need to move on and just get into some of this Sancho stuff and comments from Ashworth, but there is nothing similar about Man United and Liverpool. Like, I did a video on Slot on That's Football before the season started. They're tidier on the ball. Their passing lanes are immaculate. The control that their Jotas and Szoboszlai have when they have the ball and the passing and the movement in the final third is on a different level. They're so careful with the ball and it's so structured. I hope we can become that. But I still think we're a very uncertain team in the final third. You see it with Garnacho and Ahmad and Rashford. They sort of like don't really know what they're doing. Are they taking somebody on? Are they looking for a pass? It's very disjointed, and that needs to come with time. Of course it does. But the structures are nowhere near similar. No. Not at the moment. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't be, but yeah. Hope you're well, and why do our fans want to be like Arsenal when we don't have the patience to support our manager through the bad season, says Vlada. Martinez was poor again. His talk is cheap, says Enjoy Writing. And PJ says, I really hope that Ten Hag succeeds at United, but sometimes I do wonder about his formations and selections. What do you think is our best formation? I'm going to talk about that, PJ, because there's a very interesting theory that Agate will drop Mainu and help Casemiro and solidify the midfield up. And I don't know whether I'm actually against it, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The fact is we now have football-minded people in our club for the first time. Logic states time needs to be given for any real progress to happen. But as you said, he could sack himself, says Sedu. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable that we've got football people above Ten Hag, which we've never had. That makes me feel happier, regardless of what happens with Ten Hag. I'm happier. You know what? I'm not happy about the start to the season. But the longer I get away from that Liverpool result, and we're all entitled to be frustrated in different ways, but the longer I get away from that Liverpool result, you do start to cling to positives. I'm not going to cling to 2 crosses into the box from Rashford because he's had a bad start to the season. I'm not going to cling to, Casemiro can't get any worse because he had a bad finish to last season. Those things to me are issues that need to be solved in the team. But what I will cling to is above Eric Ten Hag, you've got Ashworth, Wilcox, Barada, Blanc. You've got football people, and we never had that before. So that is something I think you can be positive about. Let me move on. Let me get into some of the comments from Dan Ashworth then. So he was talking about what happened with Jadon Sancho and the real reason that Jadon Sancho left. And this is what he had to say from Dan Ashworth. I think with any player, whether it's Jadon, whether it's Scott, or whether it's Aaron, if their preference is that they would like to move and go to a new club and it's right for them and it's right for us, then you do have to explore it. He also went on to say that with regard to Sancho's move to Chelsea, we felt we had enough depth in that particular position to be able to cover it. We've got 4 really good wide players and Sancho was a 5th. And it just enabled us to make a decision that it was good for him and good for us. We were willing to consider it. And that is why that deal was done. On Sancho's move to Chelsea, no future hit for him, nothing to do with that. It was a decision that we made. If it's right for Jadon and it's right for us, then, we've got to look at it. He wanted to explore the opportunity at Chelsea, the same as McTominay wanted to explore the opportunity at Napoli, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka wanted to explore the opportunity at West Ham. We're not in a position where we're kicking players out of the club. So effectively, I think that's, to me, is very, very interesting, and really interesting what he said about the transfer window as well. I want to come back to that from Ashworth in a minute. But the truth of the matter is, and look, this interview has to be taken with context. I'm not going to waste time talking about a vote of confidence when it was done before the Liverpool result. That's just speculative nonsense. I choose to read comments in the context that they are meant. And when the director of football, Dan Ashworth, is saying that Jadon Sancho, Scott McTominay and Aaron Wan-Bissaka all wanted to leave, that's it. There is no grey area. What he's basically saying is Sancho wanted to explore Chelsea's offer, McTominay wanted to explore Napoli's offer, and Wan-Bissaka wanted to explore West Ham's offer. If they hadn't wanted to do it, we'd have struggled to sell them. And I think that is what he is saying. We would have really struggled to sell those players if they didn't want to go, i.e. Casemiro, Christian Eriksen, Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire. Dan Ashworth, when he says we're not in the position of kicking players out of the club, one, he's saying that because he doesn't want us to sound horrible, but two, he's also saying it because we can't. We're not in a position to kick anybody out. They've got to want to go. So we've got to act pragmatically, politely, and professionally with these players. Because if Scott McTominay doesn't want to explore a Napoli move, he's not leaving. Same with Wan-Bissaka and West Ham, and same with Sancho and Chelsea. The players at United, because of the contract situation, have the power. We can't remove Antony, even though some of you would. We can't sell Rashford, even though some of you would. And we can't sell Casemiro, even though some of you would. So what Dan Ashworth is saying there is that we're not in a position to kick people out of the club. That's not what this summer was about. It was about if players had an opportunity, and they've got agents at the end of the day, and we felt it was right for us, which of course it would be because we need to sell players, then we'll do it. But Sancho, McTominay and Wan-Bissaka all wanted to leave. That's basically it. And people saying we should have kept McTominay, this is exactly why I'm glad Dan Ashworth has said it, G-God, because we've been saying it for a long time. What people don't understand about McTominay and the DNA that Rip talks about is that McTominay wanted to go. Oh, we should have kept McTominay. We should have kept McTominay. He wanted to go. What were we going to say? Please stay at the club and sit on the bench. And he's going to go, Napoli are going to start me. He wanted to go. End of the day. And yeah. I think that's a very interesting point. I've just been sent something here from Melissa Reddy. She's saying that full explainer on how recruitment works at Manchester United. Jadon Sancho wanted to leave. Deals now structured in a way that can deliver value in the short term and the future. Sustainability will be the focus. Okay. Well, maybe we can look at that a little bit later because it's a long article that I don't intend reading now. Let me just come back to what we were talking about because this really, for me, from Dan Ashworth was very interesting as well. He was asked about his thoughts on the summer transfer window, and this is what he had to say. I like the squad. I probably would say that after the business we've done in the summer, I've probably done 25 transfer windows now and have been doing this for a fair period of time. I don't think there's ever been a window where we've gone, oh God, it's gone absolutely perfectly. We've done every single person in and everything we've done out we wanted to do as well. So what he's saying is, look, he's not saying it's the perfect transfer window, but he's saying that they're pretty happy with it. There's always going to be bits, this is his direct quote, there's always going to be bits where you go, if only I could have done that, or if only I could have got that over the line. But in the main, the target positions we wanted to strengthen, the players we've bought in, the depth and options when everybody's fully fit that Eric has, and we have as a club, I'm pleased with that. And I think there's two things to take about that. That's from the director of football acknowledging that we're not ready. You know, when everybody's fit, we've got a good squad. And obviously Luke Shaw, Malacia, Agate's not here yet, Rasmus, Yoro, Mount. That's 6 key players not ready at the moment. 6 key players is a lot, by the way. Even in a squad of 24, that's 25% of your squad. That's a big takeaway, isn't it? 6 key players is 25% of your squad if you're operating with 24. We're not operating with 24, we're operating with 18. So that's 33% of our squad that is not available at the moment. So when you're thinking about sacking Ten Hag or, you know, you're thinking whether the board will do it. They're just not going to do it with 6 key players out, a huge percentage. So I think that's what Dan Ashworth is saying there. But also what I found interesting was that he said, look, there are going to be times where you go, if only we could have done that, or if I could only have got that over the line. I think they're talking about Branthwaite. They bid on Branthwaite. I think they would have liked to get the Branthwaite deal done. There was a very interesting piece yesterday about how Manchester United would have bid £55 million for Branthwaite. We bid 43, 50, and we would have bid 55, but Everton were not moving away from 70. So United were just like, we're wasting our time. So look, I think there's probably a bit of frustration about the Branthwaite deal, but in reality, I wouldn't disagree. I think it's been a good window, and I really like what Barada said, that we will look at. It's really important that we replicate that again and again and again. And in a week where it's been really, really tough, we're only on Tuesday and it's been really, really tough. And last week was tough after Brighton. I think just dissecting and reading some of the Ashworth and Barada comments are really, really positive, because it's a mess around the team. It's a mess around the manager. I'm not going to, spray a turd with perfume. It was shit at the weekend. But above that, Barada, Wilcox, Ashworth, you can't have a pop at them. Some of those people have only been in their job weeks, and we're not judging them on being beaten by Liverpool and Brighton. And what they're talking about actually fills me with confidence that whatever happens with Ten Hag, those people hopefully will be with us for the next 5-10 years. And at a time where I'm clinging to positives at the moment, I'm actually quite enjoying what they've said, because when you've got a CEO saying we need to do that again and again and again, this summer transfer window again and again, that's a positive. When you've got a director of football saying, look, we're not in a position to kick players out of the club at the moment, but if people want to go and it's right for us, then we'll do it. I think they want to be in a position where they can kick people out, and we know that might take a few years as well. And, speaking openly, that it was a good transfer window, but it could have been better, but that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, again, I think that there are positive, and I like what Barada said about, we don't want to just win the Premier League once. We want to build a sustainable model where we can be consistent. So, look, it's not about being negative. There are reasons to be negative, but there are also reasons to try and be positive. And I don't think anybody, which is why I said last night, if you sack Ten Hag, what's your plan next? Because I get it. Your chips come out cold at a restaurant, you ask for more chips, but what if they come out cold again? Like, they might not be perfectly cooked. You hope they are, but they might not be. So I think this project is a horrible word, but this is a new project, and it will take time. Of course it will. Get Rabiot on a 3-year deal, says Big Man. You've obviously not been listening. We're not in for Rabiot, according to Fabrizio. Patrick says, hypothetically, how do you think the fans would feel if Ten Hag had been sacked in the summer? Hold on. Excuse me. Oh, it's back again. Patrick says, hypothetically, how do you think the fans would feel if Ten Hag had been sacked in the summer and the new manager had the same start to the season? He'd have more patience, mate. I mean, look, Ten Hag lost his first 2 games and his first 3 games as being a manager. So you're not happy, but you will swallow it. What you've got here is, look, I tried to get this across last night. I'll try again. I don't care if you're Ten Hag out, and I don't care if you're toxic positively Ten Hag in. I would like it if everyone was like myself, because we all want to think that everyone thinks like us. I'd love it if people were like, I'm really pissed off with Ten Hag at the moment, but I'm not Ten Hag out. There's a load of stuff that worries me, and he's probably going to end up sacking himself, but I'm not Ten Hag out yet. It's silly to be that. That's sort of where I am. I could be really critical about what's going on, but I don't have to start calling him a bold fraud and saying, get out of my club, because that's just, I don't agree with that. But I do agree that it's too soon to sack him, and I think that hopefully things can turn around. But, I think it is year 3, though. I'm not having it that it's a reset. And look, as somebody that wants him to do well, the easiest thing in the world would be for me to chant, it's a reset. If it's a reset for Ineos and it's a new start for Barada, it's a new start for Ten Hag. But I actually don't agree with that. And don't forget, Van Nistelrooy and Heck, it's a new start for them as well. So it'd be very easy to say, well, no, let's just treat it as a reset for Ten Hag. And some people are, but I'm not. This is year 3 and I expect Champions League football. That is what I expect from this season. Champions League football, because I look at the setup of the new Champions League and I think it's bloody embarrassing that we're not in it. So Champions League football has to be the end game of this season. And if we don't get it, there's got to be a really big analysis of why we don't get it. Because we bought a lot of players that are Champions League players. De Ligt, Mazraoui, Agate. These are Champions League players, and Yoro and Xerxes will want to be that as well. We need results and consistency, says Dex. I'm not Ten Hag out yet, but this year I need a style of play and wins against top 4 push high in the Premier League, says Dex. Do you think the summer spending was conducted with a view to having funds available in January? I feel we'll go for Edison in the next 12 months, says James. I hope we utilise the January transfer window. I think it's something we will be discussing over the next few weeks and months, but I hope we do utilise it. Your explanation about Rashford yesterday was very disturbing. How can we be a top club with no natural competition for places? Needs much more attention, says Zion. Your explanation about Rashford yesterday was very disturbing. I can't think what that was. Oh, yes. Well, I thought it was a very fair, pragmatic and honest assessment of what the situation with Rashford may well be with a level head. I mean, I don't know for sure, but all I said is if we're being completely fair here, it feels like the club are obsessed with getting the best out of Rashford, and that's why there is this pressure to keep picking him in the hope that he will start performing. No hate, no agenda, no toxicity. Erik Ten Hag, when he had his interview, massively impressed the club because he said he'd get the best out of Rashford. Now, if that's one of his key performance indicators, then every year he's got to prove that. Because Glazers will keep saying to him, you said you were going to get the best out of Rashford. And that's very important for us. He's our biggest earner. He's on a big contract. He's come from the youth. He's the player that we believe is the most brandifiable for this football club, or whatever you want to call it, star player, whatever, everything like that. We want you to get the best out of him. That could be coming from the very top. I don't think that's sinister. I don't think that's speculative. And I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's probably what is happening. Now, you can disagree with it. Of course you can. And obviously it's a good point from Zion. But the more I think about it, the more I actually think that might be the case. I think there is this obsession that, we've got this player that if he can score 30 goals, will get us in the top 4. So let's just keep trying and trying and trying and trying. And I think that's what they're trying to do. Are they right to do that? Well, that's for you to decide. I mean, 75,000 people at Old Trafford at the weekend didn't think so. I like that the fans. I like the fact that we fans are being communicated by the CEO rather than the various. I loved this, Anaban. This is something that happens at Dortmund. It happens in Germany with Bayern Munich as well. I really hope that this is going to become a more consistent thing where our CEO and director of football speak more regularly, because what they've said in that interview makes me feel more positive 2 days after a horrible result. So I hope we get more communication like that, because I can only applaud it. Morning, Mark. Please, can you shout out my twin sister, Fran, on our birthday? She loves the show, says Lottie. Shout out to Fran and Lottie. Happy birthday. Kana Dave says, I'm so mad that for the 10th year, these owners are robbing me of a winter of enjoyment watching my favourite team. This could be a very long winter, says Kana Dave. Why is our spacing on the pitch so wide, says Ayub. And Mark, what's your craziest prediction for United by Christmas, says Amir. Do you want a crazy prediction? Manchester United by Christmas will be in the top 4, managed by Ten Hag. There you go. You said it had to be crazy. I'll go out there with that. Villas, welcome to Members Club. Why are we even struggling like we are Spurs, says Prazad. And hi, Mark. Hope you're well. And why do our fans want to be like... Oh, yeah, I've done that one from Villan as well. Can I just give a big shout out to the podcast, by the way? It was a cracking podcast yesterday. And if you're out and about anywhere, you can listen to it on Spotify. Just scan the QR code and give it a listen. Big shout out to that. I want to talk about this Casemiro thing, but just talking about the Ten Hag situation. I don't want to panic the Ten Hag out brigade, because you're very welcome. I don't like the toxicity. I don't like the name calling. But I understand that not every Ten Hag outer is a Sancho loving, obsessive, who calls Ten Hag a bold fraud. But accept that anybody who is a Man United fan is entitled to an opinion. I just don't have to agree with it. With the Ten Hag out movement, I mean, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I'm going to bring it in because it is news. Got sent it yesterday by Pip. There's a podcast that the Manchester Evening News do with a certain journalist who I try not to name because the less I say. But apparently in their podcast yesterday, he was saying that Arne Slot has an identity in 3 games that Erik Ten Hag doesn't have in 3 years. I mean, this is why going to university to learn to be a journalist is not necessarily the best path in the modern game. A blue tick is not the holy grail to football knowledge. Arne Slot had a football identity at Feyenoord, and Erik Ten Hag had a football identity at Ajax. The difference between the two, and I'm really surprised that there is a couple of people in the chat who are agreeing with that journalist, because you cannot compare Arne Slot taking over Liverpool from Jurgen Klopp with a team that's already playing an identity of football very similar to you, with a set of players that already know what to do. It's very different to taking over Solskjaer's Man United from an Ajax perspective. Like, it takes time. And nobody has the definitive on whether it should take 3 years, 5 years, or 3 months. But there is no comparison. What Arne Slot's doing at Liverpool is absolutely incredible. But you can't compare that situation. It's a dead topic. There is just no context to it at all. There may well be other clubs. There may well be other managers. I mean, look, maybe what Emery's done at Villa is a better argument, but is Villa Man United? But Jurgen Klopp with Liverpool, they were going for a quadruple in January. They've won the title. They've won the Champions League. That team is like taking over a team that's ready to win the title that plays in the style you want to play. It's the perfect fit. And pardon the pun, he slots slotted in perfectly. So that, for me, is just incredibly bad analysis. That's not the way to do it. If you want to criticise how long Ten Hag is taking to get his style of play in, because there is a conversation there, it's not Slot at Liverpool. There are better examples of why you'd say it's not working. Look, if you want that guy to be your champion and get behind him, by all means, I definitely know I'm on the right side of what I'm saying, because, God, if you're getting behind that, great. But he also said that, I knew this would generate conversation, that's why I love it. He also said, apparently, that the reason that Ineos didn't sack Ten Hag was because of fan opinion, and they bottled it, which to me was a direct hit, as per usual, at online fans, whatever they are. And the mainstream getting very frustrated that they're not being listened to anymore. I think that comes across as Ineos bottled sacking Ten Hag because they listened to the fans when they really should be listening to the mainstream, because the mainstream obviously wanted Ten Hag sacked from about February. So I'm not having a pop at any Ten Hag outers in here because you are football fans, but mainstream against football fans who were Ten Hag in, 100% the club should be listening to fans. I wouldn't listen to the Manchester Evening News. I wouldn't listen to the Athletic or the Telegraph or the BBC. I wouldn't listen to them. Most of them don't even fucking support Man United. They are literally mainstream outlets who need Man United to be relevant. Why would you listen to them? It's in their interest to stoke up a change of manager because it generates a load of more interest in their articles when they write about who the next manager can be. So I don't actually have a problem with Ineos listening to fan opinion, because I feel that I feel we were right at the end of May. I mean, I don't want to go back down that because it's going to stoke the argument of last night again, but what is wrong with a football club testing the temperature of their fan base? It's almost like, take it away from Ten Hag in or out for a moment, and let's just focus on, should clubs listen to fans? Because I've noticed it a little bit in the last few months that it's been ridiculed by people who have an opposite opinion to those fans. But you're telling me a football club should not test the water with their fans. So on Sunday, when 75,000 fans are booing a substitution. So Jim Radcliffe should just go, don't give a shit about that. At the end of the day, I'm in charge. Why should I listen to that? What, I don't know what they're booing for. We've got Eric and Dan and Omar. And, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm in charge. Couldn't give a shit if they boo. They can sing fucking Could It Be Magic, but I take that. I'm not going to take any notice. But it's wrong. Like, I don't know when it became a bad thing for a football club's ownership to take note of what the majority of their fans are thinking. It's perfect synergy. Whether it's the Red Army saying we don't want this before a game and we want this going on, listen to them. Whether it's football fans saying we don't want an Artovich to come to this football club because of the stuff he's done in the past, listen to them. And when a large percentage of your fans are saying we don't want to change a manager, we want to see what third year's about, then listen to them. Don't necessarily make your decision based on that. But when is a football club listening to their football fans ever a bad thing? It's hard to listen to your fans when they're split. That's dangerous. But when you've got a majority saying, we don't want this, we don't want ticket prices going up, we want this area of the ground to be the section where, the hardcore fans who want to sing are. We want fair pricing on away tickets. We don't want that player to play for this football club because he doesn't represent in his personal life or what he's done in the past what we think this football club is all about. Why would you? It's a dangerous road to say football fans shouldn't be listened to. And also, we may forget this, but you are the lifeblood of football. You are. Not me. I'm one person. But a collective fan base, and I don't know how many thousand people we've got watching or how many thousands of people will watch this video, but God, I will never stop shouting that. Whether we agree or we don't agree, we're all going to disagree about opinions, but the very fundamental of a football fan is you are the most important people. There ain't no Chevrolet or TeamViewer or whatever, Snapdragon on the front of the shirt if it's not for you. Sky aren't paying loads of money for TV rights if it's not for you. Marcus Rashford's not earning 350k a week if it's not because of you. Football fans are the lifeblood of football. I think sometimes we forget that. And I will not have football fans be downtrodden by a journalist saying, oh, clubs shouldn't be listening to fans. Well, if clubs don't listen to fans, one day there won't be any fans and the club won't exist. We literally pay the wages of Omar Barada and Sir Jim Radcliffe and everybody, whether people like that or not. So I'm Slow Sports News, presenter of football fan community, says that football fans are important. Of course, I'm biased, but I do think football fans are important and should be listened to. It's like comparing two stepdads in a different households. One has taken on naughty lads who the mum couldn't control. One has gone into lads behaving, says William. People forget that Arteta struggled when he first took over at Arsenal, says Stefano. Took him a few years and the ability to clear out a squad to get them to play how he wants. A new manager will pick Rashford. People are naive, says Robert McCormack. Yeah. Robert, trust me. If we sack Ten Hag and it's coming from the top that they want Rashford to be in that team playing well, then the new manager will be set that target as well. The question is, has that been set from people at the top of the club? And I like this conversation, Robert, because it takes it away from Rashford. There's nothing I would more like to do. I hope everybody agrees with me on this. There's nothing I would like more than to be sat here going, we've got prime Rashford back. Look at him, smile on his face, scoring goals. It would fill me with joy, and I think it would fill most of you with joy. I know some people would go, no, I still want him to fuck off. He's burnt his bridges, get out. But nothing would fill me with more joy than that. And if that is the game, if that is the focus of the football club, I don't necessarily I have a problem with it, but I don't necessarily not understand it. If they want that, and that's what they believe is achievable, and they're setting that target for the manager, we want this player because it embodies everything about this football club that we believe in, and we believe that this player can be this player again, and we want you to get that player out of him, and that's your target. Robert's right. Sack Ten Hag, the next manager may still have it as a priority, and if he doesn't do it, they might be knocking on his door saying, why aren't you picking our best paid player who we need to succeed at this football club? would not surprise me if that is coming from a higher level. Because I certainly don't think it's coming from Marcus Rashford. I don't think he's got the power to do that. And it could well be another target for another player. The question about Rashford is, and I'm loath to do a video about it because I'd rather talk about a couple of other players first. The question about Rashford is, and I'm sure somebody's going to do it, analytically, is it possible for him to get back to where he was 2 years ago? Has he lost pace? Is it just confidence? Can he get past players anymore? Is he too easy to read? You know, those things are a real grown-up conversation that, you know, better minds than mine need to analyse, in the sense that I don't believe you can lose pace at 26. So for me, I've always felt there would be a light switch. I've always felt that we will see, again, a good season and probably a bad season after that and a good season. My interpretation of Rashford is he's like a light switch. When the light's on, virtually unstoppable. When the light's off, very droppable. But some people think that light switch can't be turned on anymore. I would have to be convinced about that. I don't think that you can lose pace and sharpness and ability at 26. I don't think that. How can we improve in the midfield? Is Ugarte good enough? Addy, this is a perfectly timed question. Thank you very much. It's like, I've done that one. Thank you very much. People forget that. We need results and consistency, says Dex. I'm not Ten Hag out yet, but we need to see a style of play. Thank you very much. I think I'd read that one okay. Okay, so look, I was reading some of the comments last night, and there was a few that really jumped out to me. This is very, very relevant. I want to talk about the injuries as well. Remind me about that. Very, very relevant around Casemiro, another player that's come in for a lot of criticism. There was a few comments last night, and it was very much around this. Addy's just said, how can we improve the midfield? Is Ugarte good enough? I think I quite like this, right? So a few of you said last night in the comments that you think Mainu needs a rest. We're all going to say if Mainu gets dropped, whoa, what's he doing now? He's done it to Ahmad. Mainu needs a rest. I sort of agree. I would have been very happy if Mainu hadn't gone to the Euros. From a selfish Man United point of view, I would love it. Look at Erling Haaland. Look at Mo Salah. They're fresh. They've started the season well. It's because they're playing for countries that didn't play in the summer. So I think Mainu does need a rest. I also think you can't throw your eggs into one basket with Ugarte. You replace Casemiro with Ugarte and ask him to do that job from day one. Wow. So a couple of you were saying, look, in the short term, we need to get hold of that midfield. Mainu needs a rest and Ugarte needs time to bed in, and Casemiro does need a bounce back in some way, shape or form, because we can't pay him 350k a week and never pick him just because he had a shit game against Liverpool. And what I call it is that calming sort of analysis as you calm down. And basically there was a couple of good comments that said, what I would do against Southampton and Crystal Palace, because they're two tough away games that we need to win, is I'd lock the midfield down. Casemiro will play better with somebody right next to him, and Ugarte is a defensive monster. If you put Ugarte next to Casemiro, Casemiro will supplement him with will be stronger physically and better. Casemiro can tackle, but also Ugarte will free up Casemiro to be able to play a little bit more expansive because Ugarte will be right next to him. That will then give Mainu a rest and allow Bruno to actually just stay up the pitch because you've got two proper defensive midfielders. And in the short term, that's the proposition. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring that into the morning show because actually it's not a bad idea. In the short term, it's not a bad idea. You give Mainu the rest that he needs. You give Ugarte the comfort blanket of Casemiro that he needs as he adjusts to Man United, and you give Casemiro the 100% legs and comfort blanket that he needs next to him. In a way, we know Ugarte needs a bit of time to get used to it. We know Casemiro needs a bloody big help, and we know Mainu needs a big rest. So in the short term, it might not be a bad idea to go Casemiro, Ugarte, rest Mainu, and Bruno ahead of him. The problem with it is that when you've lost your first two games of the season, well, two of your first three games of the season, and you've already benched Ahmad, and people didn't like that, if you bench Mainu, he is going to, there will be that match day reaction against Southampton where people are like, I've had enough of Ten Hag, he's benching Mainu now. But this is what I'm talking about. He's got a very difficult international break. He's got to make some big decisions. But look, Darren says it's smart. Look, it's not what I would do, but I do listen to you and I actually get it. I'm not going to sit it. Sometimes people used to say, let's play Wan-Bissaka at centre-back or Victor Lindelof as a CDM. I'd be like, oh, God, please help me. But with that, even though it's not the midfield I want to see Ugarte, Mainu and Bruno. I think that's the way we need to play. In the short term, we need to get Casemiro's confidence back because he's not going anywhere. He will play for United again. Some say it's the worst ever performance they've seen him in his career. I would probably agree with that. But we need to get him back somehow, confidently. We need to bed Ugarte in, and we definitely need to give Mainu some rest. And when I say rest, I don't mean go on holiday for a month. I mean sit on the bench and play half an hour from the bench. So I think it might not be a bad idea. It might be common sense. We do need to lock that midfield down. I mean, what he might do is just chuck Ugarte straight in. We'll play wide open again. We'll be vulnerable again, or it might suddenly start working again. But I do like the idea of a double pivot. And I think if you're going to play a double pivot, Casemiro and Ugarte might not be a bad start. Two players that don't venture forward too much, that stay close together next to each other and give us some solidity and a bit of a platform in the midfield. Because Bruno doesn't play like a fucking 10 anyway. You know, I look at an Odegaard. Odegaard gets the ball, magnetic, plays the pass. When they're defending, he's on the edge of the box. Bruno's not playing like a 10 anyway. So I think having two there as a pivot, and I do like the idea of giving Mainu a bit of a rest. And also, I thought Toby Collier really came out of that Liverpool game with a lot of confidence. I know it wasn't an amazing performance, but he will have come out of that with a lot of confidence. And he's an option in there now as well, off the bench. Jeff says, I don't want to burn Mainu out like Rashford, says Jeff. I think we've just got to be a bit... Look, honestly... At the moment, we're clearly not sacking Ten Hag, so you've got to look longer term. If we're looking longer term, sometimes you've got to look short term. And in the short term, we've got to get results. To get results away from home, you've got to be hard to beat. We've got 3 Premier League games out of our next 4. For me, there is a smartness to putting Casemiro next to Ugarte and going, right, back 4, pivot, let's build from that platform. We are creating chances. Even against Liverpool, we created 2 fucking sitters. You know, we created good chances against Brighton. We created chances against Fulham that we didn't score. So, platform, go and get results. You can't get sacked for drawing either. We don't want to draw. We need to win. But you can't get sacked for drawing either. Jimmy says, if Ugarte doesn't work, we're screwed. Literally said it on Sunday. Completely agree. Look, I'm not saying they will flop, but I will say this. If we've got to pick one of our new signings to flop, pick anybody else other than Ugarte. If he flops, we are screwed. Ugarte cannot flop. The pressure on that signing is massive. He might flop, but he literally can't. We literally can't. Ten Hag has got to make unpopular decisions on team selection. He just needs to get it right soon, says Nico. Thank you very much. All right, tell you what, we've done an hour. I don't know how we've done that on a morning show. I normally get to 11:15 and I'm like, right, I'm ready to wrap it up. So it just shows you how good the interaction's been this morning. I think that's been one of our best 10 a.m. shows for ages. I always loved the shows in the international break. I know some people hate the international break, and I do hate the international break in general. But I actually love the international break from a United standpoint of view, because you can't just do shows about, oh, we're in talks with Edison. Oh, we might be selling Lindelof to Fenerbahce. We actually talk about the things that matter around results, around tactics, around future, around issues. So applause to you. Loved that show this morning. Plenty more of those to come. It's Tuesday, 8 o'clock show, of course, tonight, 2 o'clock show as well. But loved the show this morning. Thanks, everyone, for getting involved, as per usual. And look, the positives I'm taking this morning is that we've got a CEO and a director of football that are talking to the fans and saying the right things. I know that could be propaganda, but hopefully it's the start for something good. And one thing you can take away this morning that might put a bit of a smile on your face after such a horrible weekend result is that we actually have got football people above our manager. When the bad results were happening with Ollie or Mourinho, there was no good people above them. We have got good people above. Take care, everyone. I will speak to you all a little bit later. Take care. Oh, don't forget to listen to the podcast on your way out, by the way. Brand new out yesterday. Scan the QR code. If you're heading out in the car or a walk or work or something like that, give it a listen. Support the podcast. Join the Ultras. Very good podcast. Check it out.